Well, it is 24 degrees centigrade here in Abuja, and a very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise this lovely morning. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
Well, time and tide indeed waits for no one. Can you believe it's midweek? Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
Aren't you shocked that it's already the 10th month of the year? Amaya Makide, good morning and welcome.
No, come on. This time around, I refuse. Today not 10, are you?
No, he says the 10th month of the year.
He said 10.
See, that's the thing.
I gotta listen.
He didn't come with his earpods. That's just the thing.
Let me show you one now. Can I bring it up and show you? Wait. But you know, when we saw this, it was just as though, wait a minute, have a look at this yourself. Would you believe if we told you this is Maiduguri City Center? How about, I know that yes, they are trying to at least just shake off that unfortunate flooding in that region, which we also have highlighted time and again that we should ensure we have that mechanisms, adequate response mechanism such that they at least get across to the people. But of course, this is what the city can look like. This is what it does look like, as a matter of fact, so that you don't just live with the impression that it's all doom and gloom when you hear flooding. That has a tendency of sticking to your memory and you living with it. But how about juggling your memory with this lovely sights and sounds of Maiduguri City?
Well, this is what we're hoping it will return to when eventually the waters dry up. Don't forget that when a flood happens, you know, you always have debris, things that are where they ought not to be. Don't forget that a whole dam was broken and that, deluge overtook the city, spoiling most of its beauty. But we're hoping that when the cleanup is finally done, and this is what the city will be restored to. So it's a wonderful thing to have a picture of the city before the floods so that we have something to go by when eventually the city is restored. But this is what we're seeing this morning. This was Maiduguri before the floods. And this is the picture we're hoping it will return to, if not better than this, when eventually all of the waters subside, the debris is cleared, and all the mud and sludge and everything else you can think of is clear. But certainly before we get to that point, clearly we have a lot of work on our hands. Ayo.
Just a few days ago, I saw pictures of former China before the Hiroshima and Nagasaki incidents. After the war. I saw a picture of the city after the war, and it was looking absolutely nothing like what it is today. And there are those who would also give you pictures of Dubai in the 80s and Dubai today. Exact same location. So, yes, Maokwe, we want better, not just what we have right now. All we see is what we see. But if you look under the ground in Maiduguri, in every state in this country, including this particular state and this particular city, there is so much that is there for the people to benefit from and for the city to be developed with. Let's just hope that we get there. But at the end of the day, taking from one of the things that I heard in the course of the past 2 days at that SAPZ workshop, it's not about the techniques, it's not about the theories, it's not about the formula, it's about the people. It's always about the people element. So how will we ensure that, one, we get back to the glory days, we get better glory days, and that we ensure that we don't get back to where we are coming from? It's always going to be about the people.
Well.
Now somebody has to mobilize them. Somebody has to mobilize the people.
That's still the people. That's still a people to mobilize the people.
Yeah, somebody has to mobilize the people. So the leadership is also going to be very important, very crucial in this.
Oh yeah, just thinking so many things just going through my mind now, because you'd expect that leaders, when we have them at almost every level, local government, state government, federal government, councillors, but yeah, the people are not where we ought to be.
Just yesterday, week or 2 weeks ago, something Maokwe said now, that Dr. Samademi was saying there's a difference between leader and leadership.
They have conscience.
Leader is one. Leadership is a group of people. So when we talk about leaders, the mind goes to maybe the governor or the chairman of the local government or the president, but no. The leadership is always a lot of people, a lot of moving parts at any given point in time. 1,400 plus ministries, departments, and agencies at the federal level alone. Now that is government. That is leadership. Now, how many people make those agencies?
I like the part where he spoke about the fact that leadership, democracy, and then he says, if you look at, I think, some countries in the Middle East, he talked about the model that they have there, how it's a monarchy.
Mm-hmm.
You don't elect them, you don't have to fight and kill yourself and budget so much money. But look at how they're developing. Because their leaders have conscience. They think about the people. So they put all of that first. But go and look at democracies where they fight. No, it's my turn to, I have a blueprint to move this country to the best. No, this country will be El Dorado.
Guys, I was still talking about this skyline.
It's leadership. Oh, everything rises on force of leadership.
The skyline
even the skyline rises on force of leadership. At this rate, I mean, what kind of brother do? Okay, let's go on and take you through the papers. Now you see why we talk about leadership. Have a look. Ayo's taking us through that one.
River State is still very much in the news this morning. The front page of the Daily Times has Rivers crisis. Fubara vows to bring arsonists to book as new CP assumes duty. The details of that story you find on page 2 of the paper. Nigerian News Direct's angle is peace will reign only when. Wike says Fubara invited anarchy to Rivers by disobeying court order. As Rivers gets new CP amidst unrest, Fubara vows to punish perpetrators. The front page of the Nigerian Tribune has Rivers obeying rule of law will avert anarchy. It's coming from Wike. Fubara sets up 7-man panel to probe arson killings. Mixed reactions trail Rivers' conflicting court orders. Find the details of that story on page 4. Vanguard newspaper has the same story. Arson, oil output in Rivers threatened if. That's coming from Fubara. Fubara, architect of Rivers crisis, that's coming from Wike, says arsonists will account for setting LG headquarters ablaze. Vows corporates will be fished out. Swezwin, BP, 3 others as commissioners. Rivers government constitutes 7-man judicial commission into arsonists' attacks. Decries governor's penchant for disobeying court orders. Set to challenge judicial panel of inquiry. The details you find on page 5 of the paper today. If you look at the front page of the Blueprint newspaper, it's about the EFCC. Kogi, Anambra, Katsina, Cross Rivers, 12 others move against EFCC Act, approach Supreme Court to void agency's powers to arrest, probe funds management, hearing fixed for October 22. The details continue on the inside pages. Daily Independent has the same story. 16 states ask Supreme Court to declare EFCC unconstitutional. Find the details again on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Daily Trust has cholera-related deaths rise as Lagos, Jigawa, Kano lead in casualties. 10,837 suspected cases recorded nationwide in 9 months. Wow. 395 die in 21 states. NCDC blames rainfall, open defecation. Experts proffer solutions. The details of that story on the inside pages. The Guardian newspaper, anxiety as FG commits states' funds to special development commissions. What does that mean? You find the details of that story on page 6 of the paper this morning. The Business Day newspaper has foreign investments in Nigeria stocks up 204% in Q2. Portfolio investments rise 360% to $3.5 billion in half one. Investment growth linked to high yield environment reforms. The details of that story continue on the inside pages of the paper. These are some of the papers we have for you this morning.
Oh dear, quite a lot to take in on the front pages of the dailies. Where do you want to start from? Do you want to go with rivers? Well, I know we've been on, I think there was a rivers of fire. How does water and fire go together? Big question. Okay. But there are also other, headlines that are not on the front page this morning, but are right there. You see this particular story on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to what really stands out for me right now, but I want you to also see this particular story, and let's not sweep it under the carpet. 15 states join Kogi to challenge EFCC Act. Supreme Court fixes October the 22nd for hearing. This story is a very important story, and it's one that we should watch. Just a few days ago, there was a conference here in Abuja where the EFCC chairman was talking about how court orders have impeded their ability to be able to carry out investigations or invite certain persons for questioning, at their office, and was asking the judiciary to do something about it. But this is what we're seeing now, that the Kogi state government is challenging the existence of the EFCC at all. And they're not the only ones. 15 at states. All. Yeah. Yes. They're challenging, they're asking the Supreme Court to say, does this organization, does this institution have a right to exist according to our laws? That it is not enshrined in the Constitution, and for it to be there, it has to have the approval of at least 2/3 of all the states of the Federation. And it's a very big affront on the institution itself. I mean, to challenge the very basis upon which this institution was created. Well, they are very well in their right. Some people will say that it's not everything that is. It's not everything. I'm looking for the exact term they use now. It's not everything that is right that you do, or it's not everything that you do that is right. I don't know how they say that. You have to ask, what is the motivation for this? What is the motivation? Is this just about, making sure that we're following the path of the rule of law? Or is this because, some people have now found the EFCC to be a threat, and they think this is not an organization or institution that they want on their backs after they have left office? Is that what this is about? Or is this really about upholding the Constitution? There are key questions that the lordships will have to consider if this matter eventually, this is the Supreme Court. It's actually a Supreme Court issue. When the lordships eventually get to consider this. And I want to imagine that, they will be as radical, as proactive, as they were with local government autonomy. But let us see which way the pendulum swings when this matter is considered on the 22nd of October. We don't have very long to wait. Today is just the, give me the date again. October the 9th. October the 9th. Yeah, we're a day shy of the 10th. So we have about 13 days to wait to know which way the pendulum will swing. Will the EFCC cease to exist, or will it continue to be an organization that exists and has all the powers to investigate anyone who is found short, or found wanting of the law? But as I said, that is not the issue for me. Can you imagine having a lot to say on that? And so that's not the issue for you.
But have you guys noticed how these chaps, I think, who are the governors, right?
Yeah.
Or these states, do you notice how they fight vigorously and remember to defend the Constitution?
Yes.
When it's a matter that wants to get them behind bars.
To be accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So vigorously. The best lawyers come forward to defend them.
Yeah. Page 13 is where you should look. And we also have that story for you on Channels Television. If you missed the story on our website, it's right there. You also see video as well. But the story that really sticks out for me is the picture you're looking at on the front page of both the Nigerian Tribune and also the picture on the front page of the New Telegraph, which is the MD CEO of Nigerian Inland Waterways Authority, Mr. Bolaji Oyebamji. He is shown here to be distributing life vests in his condolence visit to the community over the recent boat mishap. He is distributing life jackets. I don't know if that has popped up for you to see. I'm looking at the front page of Nigerian Tribune on New Telegraph. It's right there. for you to take a look at it. And I'm just wondering, are we joking? Is this a joke? Yes, well, a condolence visit is important, and, it's good to, sympathize when people have lost lives. When we look at the amount of lives that we have lost over the years in boat mishaps, one of them recently being in Niger State last week, when it was reported that about 300 people were involved in a boat accident. It's not clear. We're still not clear how many people died in that accident. We are told they're in their 10th. And in the last 1 year, we've lost close to 100 people, if not more, in boat mishaps. And we're saying we need to have a comprehensive safety plan for safety on our waterways. And just yesterday, it was reported that there was an accident in Lagos State involving a collision between two boats on the waterways. We understand about 5 people are missing in that particular accident. Just a random visit with life jackets is not going to solve that. What we need is an institution that is saddled with the responsibility. I want to believe that the states will be involved, and also the federal government, since there's always this bickering as to who owns the waterways, who is in charge of the waterways. If the federal government says it is involved, the answer and the solution cannot be going to go and give life jackets to boat operators and community people when people have died. There has to be an institution there that monitors how many people are being loaded onto a boat, making sure that everyone who gets into that boat, have safety jackets on, and possibly even taking names of the people who are getting onto those, means of transportation. It has to be something very organized. It cannot be a one-off slapdash measure that we're looking at in this particular instance. That is the only way we're going to be able to save lives. So, Mr. Niwa, while this is, I want to call him the MD CEO Niwa. Well, yes, we've seen your visit there. I hope you don't think that you're getting off lightly with this distribution
whether the
of
pictures
life
on
jackets.
the front page or not.
Well, yes. Well, all he's done is call attention to the fact that Niwa ought to be involved. And if that is the situation, then, sir, you will get called to account. Ayo.
Well, perhaps by way of kind of emphasizing that a little bit, I have taken some boat rides before in my time. There are some boats I won't get on. But the one in Niger State is such that people shouldn't have been allowed to be that many. I don't think people should have been allowed to be that many. Secondly, I don't think anyone called anyone out about whether or not they should wear life jackets. There is no reason why you should get on any boat without a life jacket. And then as to who is in charge, I can tell you this, Malware, for free, that local governments charge those guys, the boat riders, they charge them for every trip.
Wow.
I have ridden boats in Port Harcourt before. There are certain boats, you don't even get near the boat without a life jacket. You don't get close. That should be the minimum standard. So you getting on a boat for yourself, you don't. And then the one that happened in Niger State shouldn't have happened if there was someone to tell the people, you guys are too many on this boat, you shouldn't get on it. I think that could have been a function of overload, but then, that's another matter altogether. Leading me actually to the issue of patriotism. It's on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning, where the federal government has unveiled National Values Charter for Nationhood and Patriotism. Guys, take it or leave it. I was just checking now, and I found out that as far back as 2021, we've been talking about national values and ethics. In fact, ICPC has a page on their website for national values and ethics. The question is, what are we doing about it? Where is the enforcement? Oh, yes, it is in line with the Constitution, and we know although the Constitution is at least 25 years old, this particular one, Section 21, says the state shall protect, preserve, and promote the Nigerian cultures, which enhance human dignity and are consistent with the fundamental objectives as provided in this charter. There are a number of, there's another section that mentions specific things that has to do with integrity and all of that. Look at the one of the fundamental principles of the policy: human dignity, voice and participation, patriotism, personal responsibility, integrity, national unity, and professionalism. Chamberlain, I take this back to the 15 states. Which of these issues that you pointed out the other time
is motivating
this agitation to proscribe the EFCC Act. Which one of them?
Corruption.
Like, it's not a national value. That's a national vice.
That's why they are fighting it, because there's a leeway to escape.
So we should be very, very clear. In fact, this new move of the federal government says that it's going to be inculcated into basic primary education and possibly even JS education.
Jimmy, but you know, this is not the first time that this has been challenged. Don't forget that in Rivers State, this was also challenged. I'm unclear if it was challenged successfully, where the state government maintains that EFCC has no right to prosecute anyone in their state because they're a federal government agency, and they have a court ruling to show for that. So it's not the first time this is happening to the EFCC. But when you now have this at the level of the Supreme Court, and you have 16 states, you know, joining in this challenge, there are big questions to be asked as to, you know, how altruistic is this really about the Constitution? Is this expedient at this time?
Don't forget, Malpe, that EFCC is also a child of circumstance of sorts.
Yes, we know.
There was a time that it was the ICPC that was the bulldog.
They didn't challenge the ICPC. I think just the EFCC. You know?
Yeah, because the ICPC doesn't really get to state. I think the ICPC. There's a restriction with the ICPC. The EFCC is empowered to deal with economic and financial crimes, and it doesn't matter where it is. But what they're saying is that you have to get the approval of 2/3. Would they be willing to give 2/3 at this rate?
But we all know the answer. To give 2/3 of what? Somebody that will come and buy them in the bomb to give 2/3. Of course, they would never. For instance, now, you know, when we say most times it just comes across as though the law is strong on the weak and weak on the strong. Look at the front page of Guardian again. Abuja court judgment on VIO inapplicable in Lagos. Government declares.
Yeah, I thought Chimele was going to miss that one. He didn't, obviously. You saw it.
Just to let people know, just so that you know, look, in Lagos, this is what's going on. So maybe you should just read it, inform yourself. Who knows if maybe any of those ministers in the Temple of Justice may say, wait a minute, but the principle that applied in Abuja, the principle that applied in Delta, that was what some of the judgments were predicated upon, after which they got judgment. So when any perhaps public interest lawyer challenge this and say, well, even if you say you have a law, any law that counters what, you know, the bigger one falls flat on its face.
But they don't really need that. Don't forget that during the tenure of Governor Ambode, they were asked to leave the roads.
Exactly. FRSC as well.
Does that directive still stand in Lagos? So
I think that's part of it, because the way they were...
you're in Lagos. Is there VIO on the road in Lagos?
Yeah, I haven't seen them in a while, to be honest. Sometimes they are on the road, but most of the time
if you go to Berger area, you know what they do? They try and look at those boundaries, those blind spots. So when they said they should leave Lagos, what they did was they went towards Ogun State area, where they know that, okay, people here are Lagosians, but there's revenue here, but this is Ogun State. So they hide, they stay in that corner and say, well, if you can, we're in Lagos, this is Ogun State. So they are smart on some of this, but that's when it has to do with...
So maybe that's what the judgment is talking about. Maybe that's what that headline is referring to, that it doesn't apply in Lagos.
It goes back to national values, guys. The people in government themselves are citizens of Nigeria. And if we don't value our nation, if we don't value our laws, if we don't value our cultures, then what exactly do we
need to value the people above all else.
Absolutely.
We're back in a moment, everybody. Stay on with us.
Rots from the head. Healthy societies are raised by good leaders, while bad leaders push societies into decay. If a leader is rotten, the country will be rotten. There's no country that will be rotten, or no fish, for instance, that will be rotten, and then the head of the fish is fresh. It's impossible. So once you see bad governance, know that it is bad leadership.
Okay, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, today we're talking leadership, and in light of what's going on in the country, of course you know that we can't overstate why, or the very huge importance, why we need to get things right. And who better to talk to us about some of these things? We've got here in the studios with us, former retired General Martin Luther Agwai. And the thing about this, sir, is that it's rare to have former Chief of Army Staff, former Chief of Defense Staff, not two people, one. You occupied those positions. And so if you're looking through, if you're not sure, wait. But yes, and then that's why it's very interesting. I mean, you have been in leadership position for a very long time. I mean, right from the 60s when you headed a Christian fellowship in school and things like that. And you were also Pro-Chancellor, University of Calabar. So good morning. Thank you for coming on today, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, where do we even start? I mean, perhaps, let me ask you, just sitting back and watching how things unfold in the country, different parts of the country, choose your pick, whatever you have seen, are you comfortable? What strikes you when you see how the nation, how the leaders, the kind of decisions and policies and how it affects the people? What comes to your mind when you see all of that?
Well, I think what comes to my mind is that there is a disconnect between those who want to be leaders and those who want to be in leadership position. And you see, I always tell people that one thing, the Englishman who coined his language added a ship to leader, which is very important. And you know, a ship is not a small thing. I've heard you talking about boats and this. He didn't say leader boat. He said leadership.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. So, but a lot of us want to be leaders, and we forget that there is a ship to carry. So if you connect leader and ship, then you will know that there's a gigantic and big thing that is expected of you. And then you will now know that to carry a ship by one person is not possible. You need more hands to carry the ship. So that is the way I think, and that is the way I look at what happened. But I also want to say that in practicing leadership, the center thing in everything we do should be the human being. And that is why today what we have is talk of human security. Security has changed, and we need to move. When I joined the military some 50 so years back, what we were looking at security was to secure our country, to secure the government, to make sure nobody comes from outside to attack us. But today things have changed. Leadership, if you forget about the human security that talks about the needs, the human needs, then you will be grappling in the air and you will be having challenges, because once the human being cannot get his basic needs, then you have a problem to get a followership and a buy-in from him.
You know, I was reading something, just looking at my colleague, I can understand your difficulty, Chamberlain, when you look at General Martin Luther Agwai, you're wondering, where do you start? I mean, because you have worn so many hats. Is it when you led the peacekeeping mission, the UN peacekeeping mission to Darfur, and you know, you are quoted very famously as saying you're there to work with the people of Sudan and to help them find peace. I think it's something that, I guess it's a hat that you'll continue to wear even here in Nigeria, where you know you come from, and you know that when you go out there, people will ask you about your country, and I'm sure that you're not always very happy. I'm looking at you and I can't believe you're 76. You don't look a day over 60, and I'm saying this at the risk of flattering you, but hey, I'm sure people will look at you and they will go and check as to whether you're really 76 years old. But this is the reality. This is where we currently are today, that there are so many aspects of our country where things are failing and people are dissatisfied. If people look back, it's interesting, just this month, we celebrated 64 years of independence, and people have had cause to sit and reflect. Interestingly, the president's speech was very direct. He didn't waste any time in acknowledging the sufferings of people in his Independence Day speech, looking at the current state of our economy, owing to the reforms he's trying to implement, and how that is impacting people, the state of security in many parts of the country, the challenges that people have to deal with in their environment. In Maiduguri, for instance, flooding overtaking the city, and those kinds of things that are sometimes unforeseen, some of them foreseen. As somebody who has occupied the seat of leadership and, led this country's very patriotic military, not just in Nigeria, but also led a military outside of Nigeria, where do you think we're failing? Where do you think we're dropping the ball? Where have we gotten it wrong? Some people will say it's in the area of inclusion. Is it an area that you will agree with them on?
Yes, I would definitely agree that if you include people in things that affect them, they feel they are part of it. So it's easier. I have said in some fora, what I learned in the military that have helped me a lot is a simple thing. When people outside the military keep saying the military is obeyed before complain, and that you have no say, they don't really understand the issue of what I was taught as a young cadet in 1970 of what we then were called man management, which has expanded today to be something much bigger. That if you have input from people, and I have practiced it in my service for when I was in service, even as a captain, major, until I was rising up. There's something the army called DOBA, that where you, the commander, with the company commander, battalion commander, sit with your men. People don't know this. And you discuss and ask them, what is your challenge? How do we? And I remember this same Maiduguri you are talking about. In 1974, I was posted to Maiduguri. That was my first time in that place. And the heat, because I went in April, May, it was hot. And my soldiers during Doba were complaining how their children were dying from heat and everything. And there's no way we could make life more comfortable. So during Doba, we were talking, and some soldiers said, "Oh, sir, if we can get a fan, a table fan or standing fan, we'll get a small refrigerator to put water for our children and this." I said, "Well, how do we get it?" Then I went back and I sat with some small group. I said, "How can we address this?" I went to Ketcherams in those days, and I asked them, I don't have money, I don't have any kobo with me. Say, but we have integrity. We have credibility. So I said, we want to buy things on hire purchase from you, and we'll pay. Luckily at that time, the military pays, like everywhere in Nigeria, on the table. So any soldier that decides to buy, we know how much we will deduct, and we know when we count, we give you minus that. All is honesty, transparency in what you do. We were able to get this from at a discounted rate, and we were paying them religiously, and we were making 1.5% interest, whether it's legal or illegal, I don't know, but we put 1% interest for the handling charges and everything, And out of that, I was able to buy a Volkswagen Safari, which is like a small Jeep for the unit, because we didn't have one vehicle to collect pay. If I travel with my car I bought on hire purchase or loan from the army, there's no vehicle to carry even the truth pay from the bank to the unit to pay them. So from that, we were able to even buy a vehicle and give the soldiers. So if I'm not there with my little Datsun car, they still can. But it was from the discussion I had with them. I now use my little training and exposure to do that. I did that as a brigade commander in a different place in Bauchi. That was on drugs or medication. We run a drug revolving scheme. I went to the our medical center. I saw a woman crying. And I just finished playing squash. I stopped by. I said, what is wrong? They said, this woman lost her son. I said, what happened? She said, they prescribed medicine. We have no medication. So she had to go to borrow money to go to buy the medication. By the time she came, the child had died. So she borrowed money. She had medication in her hand. The child is gone.
Wow.
So that brought another challenge. We sat down as a group. We thought about it. I went to the military government. I said, please, can you loan us 50,000 naira that time? I had no money. From that, by the time I was leaving that unit, we have been able to accrue 1.5 million from 1.5% of interest. The drugs were right. The time anytime they prescribe a medication, you can't pay once, you pay instrumentally. So you have genuine drugs, you pay when you can. And so it is, leadership is trust. Leadership is transparency. Leadership is empathy.
General, let me take a quick jab at that issue that you raised about having to do these things the way you had to go about it. You said this was in the 70s.
Yes.
It was about the same time that the government of the day was saying, we don't have a problem of money. We had a problem of spending the money.
1974, 75.
About that time,
around that time.
Yes.
Remember, that is the time that the person who is attributed to make that statement was overthrown.
Okay.
Yes. So let's get our facts.
So that changed. Was it that we didn't have enough money at the time as a nation?
I'm not saying, again, as a simple young soldier, officer then, and now simple old soldier, I am saying that there are things that we have to put them in their proper perspective. The army started with 200, the army that went to civil war,
yeah.
How big was it? By the time we finish the civil war, we have over 250,000 people wearing uniform. Even salary, how much is it? Not to talk about the expansion. It was easy to fight in the southeastern state, or what we call the southeast region today. That is where all the military activities were. After the Civil War, it expanded out. But let's leave it that.
The reason I raised that question actually is the welfare of the people who protect the territorial integrity of Nigeria.
Yeah.
So if it was the way you are describing it back then, I wonder, whether or not you see credibility in the complaints that we hear from, the foot soldiers in the various areas of fighting banditry and insurgents all over the nation.
Right. No, you are right that there are challenges, and we are talking about how to manage them. If we can judicially and effectively, they can be managed.
If I could just jump in, General, pardon me. I'm just wondering, sir, now, we have how far away or close would you say we are from probably getting things right, if we could use that phrase? Because we have leaders who care mostly about themselves. And then we have maybe themselves and maybe their foreign partners who tell them what to do or who help them get into whichever office, because that happens. But we also have a group of maybe a generation of people who all they've seen are these corrupt leaders and how they've just put it in everybody's face. They rub it in everybody's face and say, look, do whatever you want. And so that's the mindset that people have. So when you speak about leadership being about the people, hearing from the people, what do the people actually want? What do I do to make sure my people are better? I mean, incidentally, former head of state, General Gowon, is going to be 90. And some of the values and principles that the military lived by those days, the ethos, saw the country through certain times at that time. So today is completely different. So would you say we are way too far, or yes, we have a lot of work to do, but could you put it in perspective for us? How far or close, and what should we be doing to address this?
I think we're not too far, we're not too close, we're somewhere in between. And what I will say is that for leadership that we need, first and foremost, why do you want to be a leader? And yes, I do not see anything wrong in people projecting themselves to be, but there are a lot of what they have in the military. That's where I spent the whole of my life, so pardon me. People should pardon me. I have never done the little job I did before joining the military. It was very small. I then went to the military and I stayed for about 40 years wearing that uniform.
I'm sure they'll pardon you because the military has also been in power for very long in this country.
Yes, so, but because of that, that's why I say you find most of my examples and things are coming from the military, because that's where I spend most of my time.
How do you reconcile? I really hate to interrupt that question, but how would you reconcile the fact that, when people look at the military incursion in our politics, they blame it for a lot of things. They do not think that the military did us right in our, in our life as a country. They think that the incursion of military into our lives is one of the reasons why we're where we are as a country. And the examples, the fine examples you're given of your time within the military institution and how the military has Doba and all of this, other wonderful examples. How is it that it did not translate into a leadership ethos for the Nigerian people, especially in the time that the military was in power?
It's quite interesting. I've had this question being asked over and over.
Oh, you have?
Yes, but the question I always ask back, it's very easy to say military rule. How many of us in the military were involved in the political life and political running and administration of the country? Virtually all the ministers, commissioners in the state and everything were civilians. How many times did I ever go, and I never in my life up to when General Gowon left, I will talk a little. I know I was able to see General Babangida when he was president, but up to when General Gowon left, I never saw him. The only time I see him is on parade ground. So you see, there is very easy to blanket and carry everything to the military. Who were the advisors? Who were running the banks? How many military officers were ministers? How many military officers were ambassadors outside? How many military officers were running the country? But yes, our bosses did. So by extension, we did. But minus that, we never did have any major say in it. The same people. And go back and check your record. Who then catapulted and become ministers? Who wanted to be president? They were all ministers under the military. So I am saying that it's a collective failure, not only of the military, but all that were in part of it. And that's why I wanted to say in the question you asked. Because it's a collective thing. I always believe that leadership is collective. If we, whether under military, okay, the military have left. How many years? Why have we, under this civil dispensation, the civilian dispensation, we have not been able to get it right? It's collective leadership. And just as you have challenges in the military, We have challenges when the military left. But I think if we change the equation and say, what are we doing to ourselves and to our people? And then the people themselves ask, what are these our leaders doing for us? We question, because there should be accountability. But it's not. It is, what you see is winner takes all. So if we are going to have winner takes all, then I will fight for the last drop of my blood to win, so that I will take all. But if it is a thing that we all share, and we all know that everybody, whether you voted for that government or not, that government is in power, politics is over. We should be running the country and wait for the people. Give people a chance. If they feel you have done well, they will give you back. If they feel you have not done well, they will remove you.
So you don't agree, following up on Malcolm's question, you don't agree with those who say that the military foisted the 1999 Constitution on us, and consequently, we need a new one?
Well, you see, the nation is, everything about a nation is dynamic. If the military has failed, why is it taking us so long to now agree and go back if we really believe that we want to progress? And it is that military constitution that has stopped us. I believe with the number of knowledgeable people, intelligent people that we have in this country, we can sit back in another 3 months and come up with a constitution that we want. But people are running down the constitution, and yet nobody wants to change. All of us want to change. We want somebody to change, not ourselves. And just on a lighter note, somebody said, we all want to go to heaven, but we don't want to die.
Well, maybe there is a vehicle that, trying to piggyback on Chamberlain's question about people. In 2019, there was this national security strategy, and I think you also spoke to it in the course of time now, that the focus should be on people security, human security, as opposed to state security. Do you see, it was a national security strategy in 2019. Yes. I don't know whether or not it was ever actioned. Do you see that happening today? Do you see a focus, deliberate, strategic focus on human security in our nation today? Do you see that strategy in play?
Well, the strategy is in place, but the execution, I think, is not flowing with the spirit of the strategy.
What's the gap?
The real gap is the implementation. If you now said you are putting people in front, and you can't provide the basic thing that the people need, then I think there is a problem. We can now ask ourselves, what is the problem? And if we know, and I'm sure you, ladies and gentlemen, even here, the four of us, we can sit down and propose solution to this, and the experts can go into and turn it into a law. We all know what is good for the human being. We all know the basic things. It is the lack of doing what we are supposed to do that have taken us this far to where we are. But we can still go back, I believe, if we are determined.
What do we need to do, General? Chamberlain cited something the other time that a leadership consultant talked about, Dr. Samadiemi, talking about leadership with conscience.
Yes.
There are those who have opined that the problem we have in our nation is the style of government that we have, is the style of our democracy, is the choice of democracy. But just as you said, it's always a winner takes all kind of situation. But this leadership expert cited a monarchy, like in Dubai, that you can't sack them, you can't vote them out, but they are leaders with conscience. And it's appealing that our leadership should be with conscience. You have demonstrated that when you led your people in the North. How can we get there? Do you teach conscience?
Yes.
You teach leadership with conscience?
Yes. What do I mean? Why do I say yes? You have values. What values have you impacted on your children as they are growing up? If I have traveled around this country, the only two state capitals I've never spent a night in this country, but I've traveled to every state, is funny enough, Jigawa and Bayelsa. All other states, I have spent nights, days, and days. I've traveled. Do you think that the Yoruba culture, where they wake up and kneel down and with even dobale to greet people, was born from heaven? It passed from generation to generation. Up to today, it doesn't matter how old that person is. He knows what to do with his elder. So we can teach this thing. It's just like leadership. People say you can't teach leadership. You can teach leadership. It's beginning. How do you start? At the start, what is our primary from the local primary level? What do we do? In our home, what do we do? When children go to school and the parents follow it to go and abuse a teacher for scorning his child in school for doing something wrong, is that not, we are showing the children that you cannot be corrected? So you see, I think we have to take it the whole. Anything we want, we have seen it. Let's put it in our curriculum. Let's bring back what we think has gone wrong. Our history. How much people are rewriting history, changing history every day because they want to tell those in power what they want to hear. When I was in position, I had that feeling. People want to tell me what I want to hear and not what I need to know so that I can react in the right direction to do the right thing. When you keep away the leaders from the people, they don't understand what is happening.
General, so, I'm sorry, Jimmy. How do we get today's leaders to have conscience?
Today's leaders may be difficult. We have to be frank to ourselves. You see, again, if you take a tree, a branch, you know, if you bend it when it's wet and you can make a bow out of it and you can use. But if you allow it to dry and you want to bend it, you will break it. But if we now, and I say my feeling, I may be wrong, I'm not an expert, but if we start it from now today, say, this is what we want from our primary education onward, these are the values we want to, and we look at first how patriotic we should be, how we should treat our neighbor as ourselves, and how there is enough to go around. And we can not all be equal, even our fingers are not. So we cannot all be equal. But the basic, we should all have.
All right, General, as you wind down, are you going to be doing anything for General Gowon's birthday? Any special event going on?
Yes, there is this event for General Gowon at 90. And I'm so delighted that I'm part of the group because, as I told you, as a young person in 1970, when I joined the military, he was the head of state. We saw in him leadership. We saw in him credibility, honesty, of sincerity in what he does. He's not an angel. None of us is one. But he came at a most crucial time. And I'm talking this as a soldier, as an officer. And I'm happy you have mentioned some leadership position I have both locally and internationally. When people sit down and write history, we're sitting in this air-conditioned room talking about it. You don't know what that person was going through. I'll tell you a personal example. The day Nigerian battalion moved from Sierra Leone to go and be a vanguard battalion in Liberia, I didn't sleep. I was wondering what would happen to my soldiers. Would any of them get wounded? Would any of them get killed? Would the helicopter be shot down? And everything. But today, those who are going to write anything about Agwai, they will say anything under air condition. They don't know what was in my brain. The same thing about any leadership position that others are holding, like General Gowon. That at 32, 33, 34, he led this country into he fought a civil war, and we were able to come back. And he did not glorify himself to say, oh, I have done it. Say, no victor, no vanquish. We're Nigerians in Hana fighting. Let's unite. And From that day till today, he had been singing about unity of Nigeria. I think he needs to be recognized. He needs to be celebrated.
And that's a fine place to anchor this morning. We've had the pleasure of talking to retired General Martin Luther Agwai, former Chief of Army Staff, former Chief of Defense Staff, among several caps, also Pro-Chancellor, University of Calabar. He's led Nigeria's troops internationally as well. So I think we'll definitely look forward to having you again, sir, so we can have another expansive session on leadership. And then security, we didn't even delve into those areas. So it would have been lovely, but you know what happens with time. Yes, indeed. Thank you for coming on, and all the best to you, sir. Business Morning on Sunrise really comes up now.
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. Well, interesting conversation you had there. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do business for just about 30 minutes. Before we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio, we start from the global space where oil prices steadied on Asian trading on Wednesday as traders are weighing development in the Middle East conflict against continued bearish expectations for demand. We look at the numbers and we see just a bit of movement right there. For instance, in Brent, we see 22 cents is what was added to it to $77.40 a barrel. That's 0.3%, while for WTI it's just 14 cents added. That's 0.2% to $73.71 a barrel. And of course, we do know that issues around going on in the Middle East is a major driver of the market. So prices had plunged more than 4% in the previous session under possible Hezbollah-Israel ceasefire. But markets remain wary of a potential Israeli attack on Iran's oil infrastructure. The sell-off on Tuesday followed a rally that began after Iran launched a missile barrage at Israel. That happened on October 1, culminating an 8% gain on the week. That was on Friday, the largest ever. On the demand front, data shows that United States crude oil stockpiles rose by nearly 11 million barrels last week, and that is much more than what was expected. We come back home to the Naira now. There was an intervention by the Central Bank of Nigeria in the FX market yesterday, and of course that shows in the numbers. So we see that it's not infirm. We're yet to get more story on that, but we do know, of course, the introduction of that IFM also is a factor. But yesterday we saw a huge gain on the value of the Naira, about 73 Naira 40 kobo added on the NFM platform, 4.50. That's about 73 Naira. So we see, even though it opened at 1,635 Naira 15 kobo, at the close of trade, the Naira was going for 1,561 Naira 75 kobo. On NAFEX, it's actually flip side. I guess it takes a lot of time, as we always say, that more of the demand are here. So it tickles down here after so much time. So it closed at 1,630 Naira and 90 kobo. But I guess this is built on the intervention of the Central Bank of Nigeria yesterday towards the close of trade. Now, not so good news from latest data from the National Bureau of Statistics, which is that Nigeria's capital importation declined in the second quarter of 2024. There was 22.85% drop from 3.37 billion in the first quarter. It went down to 2.60 billion in the second quarter of 2024, just when we're looking for so much FX, Well, this current figure represents a substantial year-on-year increase year-on-year, 152.8%. That's year-on-year. But of course, quarter-to-quarter is what we have seen. Portfolio investment drive that, leading type of capital import accounting for 53.93%. A total of that, so it's 1.40 billion. That's for portfolio investments, those ones that come and go, the hot fire, Well, other investments total 1.169 billion, making up 44.92 within this category. Loans dominated, constituting a staggering 98.6 at 1.15 billion, while other claims received a modest $16 million during the quarter. Now, experts in the oil and gas as well as mining sectors in the country say the country is facing hard times if a policy to strengthen human capital base is not urgently put in place, that it might get worse. And this is needed to record appreciable growth in the industry. Professionals and other stakeholders from these critical sectors opine that the federal government must urgently brace up for the challenges of bridging the gap that arises from the divestment of IOCs, as international oil companies, and make the build-up of more professionals easy for the growth of the industry. The conversation was at this year's annual lecture series of the Nigerian Mining and Geosciences Society.
This is an opportunity to have a rethink, have a holistic look at what is happening in the oil sector, which the divestment of the IOCs and the takeover of the operation by the national oil companies. We need to also have the necessary pool of expertise that we're going to feed the industry. So it's about time there is a policy that's going to be built around that, so that we don't have a situation where this current crop of our leaders in the oil industry resign, we will be having the appropriate set of people to run this space. So it's a good discussion that we're starting, and we hope from this discussion we can build on to implementation, as the case may be. We just believe that with the recommendations made by the presenter, we can remedy such deficiency and ensure that the future is actually protected.
Everybody's looking for capital, human capital training, more of it, and of course it all costs money. Now the private sector is also in focus this morning, and it's the theme at the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce Summit. They have brought together some members of the private sector discussing the issue of financial inclusion, now to make the most of the potentials in the country. How the changing banking sector landscape can support Nigeria's socio-economic reforms is the focus of this meeting organized by the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce. For the immediate past president of the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Mr. Ken Opara, the theme is a needed target that can be achieved through financial inclusion.
The formal sector in the banking sector also grew from 54% to 64%. Out of that 74%, the formal banking sector inclusion grew to 64%. Are we there yet? No. I can tell you that much. In Ghana, our next door neighbor, financial inclusion is 96%. The banks will remain internationally competitive. Foreign direct investors will then be able to invest. We're already seeing that even the current recapitalization, no longer just FPIs, foreign portfolio investor. We are seeing foreign direct investors coming in to invest in equity of some of these financial institutions.
The banking sector is just one of the many areas that require attention, which is why the audience here include representatives from the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, players in different sectors, and even analysts interested in data to understand the trend of economic movement. All of this, the Chamber says, should be intentionally handled.
I mean, the banking sector is very critical, especially when you talk about U.S.-Nigeria trade. Over the last year, we've had, profit of more than $1 trillion. So the banking sector is very key with respect to investments. Speaking about Nigeria and U.S., if central banks reforms are being adhered to and they have positive impacts on our economy, definitely the skyrocketing effect or the ripple effect would be improved trade volumes between Nigeria and the US. So we look at the digital transformations, we look at the digital variances that are coming up, we look at the rules and regulations that are put together by the CBN. Forex is also something that has been very critical to banking. So with all of this in mind, it's critical that the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce puts together a forum that speaks to how the banking landscape is transforming the economy of Nigeria and our socio-economic lives.
Conversations such as this become useful only when actions are taken. The Chamber promises to follow up. Yeah, that's it. Private sector getting some attention right there. Well, one topic that never gets old in Nigeria this time is food security. This morning, we want to head all over to Kebbi State to find out what they are doing. And unfortunately, the latest news from Kebbi State is actually that of insecurity, a district head being kidnapped and all that. And we know that insecurity is one of the major challenges to food security in the country. Let's speak to the Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources in that state. We have Mr. Shehu Muazu joins us from there. Good morning, Mr. Muazu, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning, madam. How are you? Good morning, viewers.
Good to have you on the program. So the issue of food security is a national one, and we know that for a state like Kebbi, you have a lot of grains, maize, and that are supposed to come from there. But I do not think that we do have a lot of cash crops and fruit. You have cowpeas, onions, millet, sorghum. I wonder how much production we're actually having from Kebbi State at this time.
Madam, we are on it. I can say Kebbi State is one of the largest producers of rice in Nigeria. We are in the same league with states like Niger. Equally, we are the largest producer of onions in Nigeria. You are talking about security. When we come on board as a government, His Excellency, the Governor of Kebbi State, Comrade Nasiru Idris, immediately swing into action to address the issue of security, because you can't produce food without securing your land, without securing your farmers. This we comfortably addressed, and all IDPs were able to return all the IDPs back to their communities and back to farming activity. So I can tell you we are in a very good state as far as farming is concerned in Kebbi.
Share with us how you handle that, because I mean, it's not just Kebbi that is dealing with insecurity as a threat to the farmers. Some people say, do you send police or vigilantes to the farms, or how do you handle insecurity in your state?
What will happen is immediately the governor come on board, he summoned a meeting with the security chiefs in the state. And they laid their complaints and demand their logistic requirements. The state government was able to attend to, as they were provided with all the logistics requirements, allowances were paid, and then we now come up with an idea of community participation in the security architecture. This was done by providing training to the local vigilante, and as well as providing other logistical requirements to the entire security architecture, including the army, the police, the SS, and the civil defense.
All right. Now, another area is adding value. Seeing that Kebbi has the potential to produce a lot of cash crops, cotton and peanuts and all of that, is there a plan so that we're not just selling out the raw crops? Is there a plan to add value, before it is being sold even to other states or being exported outside the country?
Yeah, His Excellency has launched a comprehensive agriculture development program. This program includes value addition to the crops we are producing. Equally, we have a plan of establishing agro-processing zones. These agro-processing zones will come with what we call the ATCs, that's the Agri-Transformation Centers. At the Agri-Transformation Centers, it is expected that primary value addition will take place by the producing farmers and other entrepreneurs before now moving to the main agro-production hub at the center. So we are working on it, and we believe in value addition, because that is what will give our people good value for their produce, and that is what will increase the benefit that are derived from the production. We are not only stopping at primary production, we are also moving into the first stage of value addition.
Yeah, so we know that a major challenge to value addition is infrastructure, power, storage facility and for preservation and processing facilities. Is there like a hub or something that makes it easy? Do you have like off-takers to the farmers that connect the farmers to maybe this processing zones or something like that?
Yeah, the whole idea of a special agri-processing zone is to address these challenges of production. The warehousing aspect, the power aspect, and the other infrastructures required. So the essence is to provide common user facility such that the production or the process will go 24/7 unhindered. That is why we immediately queued into the Bank of Africa Development Bank program. And to the glory of God, we are on top of it. We are one of the states that are considered for the second phase of the agri-processing zones in Nigeria.
But what are the requirements to access it? Because I've had conversations where I've been told that there's free trade zone, there's processing zone, but sometimes the requirements are rather stiff.
Please come again.
What are the requirements? How can a farmer or an individual access these zones that you're talking about? What do they need to have? What do they need to do?
You see, the idea is this: we are having 3 agri transformation centers in the state. These transformation centers are open to all farmers. They are going to provide storage facilities. They are going to provide inputs. They are going to house mechanization service providers. Then at the center is the main production hub, and this hub is open to all who will be manufacturers. Anybody that wants to go into production, all he needs to do is to come and pick a space within the production hub, which is within the agri-processing hub. I think it's open for everybody as long as you meet up with the requirement.
All right, we have to thank you so much, Commissioner for Agriculture and Natural Resources in Kebbi State. We do hope in the coming months we would see the proceeds from both your collaboration with farmers and from the processing zone. That obviously is what we need in the country as we head or look forward to food security. Thank you so much, Mr. Sheumwa.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you.
All right. Now let's shift base. For some days now, the story of Starlinks has been in top on the news. NCC, of course, has reacted, and then we've heard of data, the need for increase in tariff or not. And then let's get updates. I did speak to, an official from NCC earlier today, and they assured us that yes, there's the pre-enforcement of penalties on Starlink. That's the stage that they say they are at this time. But let's talk about that. And perhaps the need to increase tariff. We've had players in the sector complain that they're not breaking even at this time. But let's get the first-hand information now from the General Managing Director of VDT Communications, Mr. Abiodun Omoni, joins us right here in the studio. Mr. Omoni, good morning, and thank you so much for your time. I know you're a player in the industry, so you're going to be careful answering this. What was really going on with Starlinks and NCC? Some people say they had approval to increase tariff, but the domestic or the local players did not. NCC has come out to say that's not true, and so now they're beginning enforcement of penalties. Being an insider, please gist us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good to have you.
Okay, Starlink is a company, and VDT Communications is another company as well. We are in the same industry. We provide data communication services, broadband services generally. So, but on this issue, the role of NCC as the regulator. So whom should we believe? Was there really an application? I mean, I don't want to get involved, but I just want to set the tone and say, okay, was there an application? NCC will know. If Starlink had applied, they will know as well. However, if there has been an approval, then whoever gets approval will know. So I don't know the nitty-gritty, but generally, for you to increase a tariff, part of the regulation that guides the industry is such that you will have to get an approval from the NCC. So if that is settled, then there won't be an issue. However, I must say that the industry, the prices is due for review. It's been due for a long while. And you can see, I mean, many companies are actually running at losses. MTN, you saw their half-year publication, and the same thing is happening all over. We've been hearing of smaller players dying, not as big as that. But the moment a company like Starlink comes in to the industry, things will change. You know, there's been a lot of dislocation in terms of foreign exchange. Starlink probably counts his money in FX. You know what has happened in the last 1 year to the FX market? So this is actually affecting all operators. If we are talking of cost-reflective tariff, then definitely the reasons why you are seeing losses in operators' operations is because their costs had risen, whereas the revenue had actually not grown. And there is an urgent need for the regulator to start giving.
Yeah, but where goes the consumer in this? Because the consumer in Nigeria is getting hit from so many fronts. There was an announcement of an increase in minimum wage, which doesn't go to up to half of the population. Even that seems to have been eroded. Now, we have this tariff, we have petrol, we're looking at subsidy being totally removed, and now we're getting hit on this side. I mean, who's speaking for the consumer? Who's caring for them?
Okay, so these businesses are private enterprises. They are not government or public NGOs. And there is a linkage between investment and profit. Okay, so in an industry where there is no profit, then there can't be investment. In our own industry, if there is no investment, then what we are going to see is poor quality of service. So I hope you are linking what I'm saying. So now it's good to talk for the consumer, but the consumer has to pay the right price. So if the consumer continues to behave like in the days of Nitel, then we will have a non-existent industry. Even the government institutions, the discos that came from the government base, there was band A, band B tariff. So now, if you talk about consumers, we are all consumers. We consume one thing or the other. There is a structural problem. There is some dislocations that exist now in the economy. So there is FX dislocation in the last 1 year, and that affects the issue of diesel consumption. More than 40% of operators' OPEX it has risen to like 60%. Is expended on diesel. So that is energy. And that is also affected by the FX. So, and aside that, so what that means is that definitely we need to make sure that in a capitalist economy, the operator is able to make profit. If they are not able to make profit, the consumer is even going to suffer bigger losses than the pricing. So we knew maybe in the early 2000s when Telecoms came, Nitel was still operating, MTN, Airtel, then Econet, they existed, and the tariff was high. Then we started saying people moved from the lower price to the higher price because they were able to get better quality. So let's restore quality by right pricing in the industry.
So what percentage of increase would be right pricing for operators like yourself?
Well, I mean, the operators themselves, they operate in the economy. So percentage of increase, I can't see anything less than I don't want to put a particular percentage now, but it may be something gradual. The regulator needs to ease the burden by making sure that maybe something like 50% to start with, and then increasingly, depending on how the economy goes, there may be, and the operator can then put up a system that makes it easy for operators to be able to use cost. Once cost starts increasing, then the margin is thinning out, and as it is now, wiped off. So they do not need to continue to come in and make application. Everybody sees it when the cost. So the regulator can set up a system wherein is getting cost. When cost is rising, then we should be able to moderate and allow the pricing to be as flexible as the cost is.
What change in consumer attitude can we expect with this increase you're asking for? We know now that it seems a lot of consumers, at least in Nigeria, at least in the urban areas, are switching to data. So there's data call more than, normal calls. And what change in behavior can we expect? Do you think some people will drop off or will be dropped off the consumer bracket if there's an increase?
I do not really think people will be dropped off. I think quality is going to improve. The data, like you said, is if you look at the operators' growth rate, you will see that data continues to increase, like you just mentioned. I think we are going to get better. We are going to get better service, more services, more applications will come on, and people can then actually do what they are doing faster, because operators will have enough resources to invest and buy more modern equipment, and that gives better coverage, or even have more equipment that could guarantee better coverage. So what I see is that there's going to be better quality of service, and with better quality of service, then people will be more encouraged to go and use this on other platforms. We have the educational sector. Even though, yes, it's been, some people are having data-enabled learning now. This is going to grow more. We have it in banking. More people will be able to operate on this. So, and of course, we have more enriched voice using these voice calls. Many people do their voice call on data now. Then the quality is going to improve, and then that will encourage.
So is this talk already on with NCC? Can we as consumers say, maybe in a couple of weeks, in a couple of months, we would hear of this increase? Is that in the pipeline?
In natural sense, I won't talk for NCC, but definitely it can. This cannot.
As operator, you guys have already applied.
Yes,
for
operators
it, or you're just
have applied.
For...
We are pushing, and it's just justifiable that this be eased and the increment be granted.
All right, thank you so much. I'm not happy to hear that, but I'm a journalist.
That is the reality.
I'm a journalist in this case, and I have to.
I'm preparing everyone for that.
I'm preparing our man to pay
for
more.
An increase.
Oh wow!
Yes.
Thank you so much, General Managing Director of VDT Communications, Mr. Abiodun.
Group Managing Director.
Group Managing Director.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your views and preparing our minds for that increase.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, so now let's just look at a little bit of the market, how the market closed yesterday before we head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio. It was a negative market yesterday, 0.12%. Gain of Monday was wiped off, totally wiped off, and even more. So you see 0.12%. And then activity chart was mostly red at the close of trade. Sectors, banking down, consumers down, industry was slightly up, oil and gas back up right there. But we'll give you fresh numbers at 1 p.m. That'll be Business Incorporated. Ladi and myself will be back here to take you around the world of business in 55 minutes. For now, let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're picking up on looking ahead at the World Sight Day, which will be will kick off pretty soon. And so we've got, as you may have seen in that welcoming slide, Dr. Chibuzo Clement George, who is the chairperson of Nigerian Optometrists Association Rivers State Chapter. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
All
today.
Right. Yeah, so let's talk about this. It's not a subject matter that a lot of people talk about that much, even though, yes, we say the eye is a window to the world. So without that, you know how hugely important it is for us to have that functioning properly. But looking at this year's theme, in fact, some stats very, very concerning. We understand, we don't know if this has changed though, but last time we checked, they said an estimated 4.25 million adults over 40 years are visually impaired in this country. And they say about 1.3 million living with blindness. That certainly raises a lot of concern. So one then wonders, I mean, for professionals like yourself and your association, what's going on with this World Sight Day this time?
Thank you once more for having me. The statistics haven't changed. So World Sight Day is a platform for advocacy. It's a platform with WHO and IAPB that have formed to create awareness on the impact of visual impairment in the society at large. So they created the platform of Love Your Eyes. Every year, the second Thursday in October every year is dedicated to the theme Love Your Eyes. And this is an advocacy platform in which we create awareness all over the world on the impact of visual impairment on the society. But this year in particular, our attention is on kids. Our statistics have shown that over 450 million children worldwide are visually impaired. Some of the impairments are correctable. About 190 million children all over the world have uncorrectable visual impairments that have led to blindness. So it is very concerning. And in Nigeria here, we really don't have any policy on child eye care or eye health. So Nigerian Optometry Association, in collaboration with Rotary Club of Port Harcourt GRA, the Grief Fielders, are using this platform to advocate, create awareness, and plead with government to pay more attention on child eye care and eye health, because it generally impacts their life on the long run, if not properly handled on time.
Yeah, I see you say every child deserves the right to a clear and healthy vision. But broadly speaking, what is it that you, probably your association has noticed as to what predominantly gets in the way of us here in the country generally paying attention to our eyes and ensure that it's as healthy as can be?
Yeah, we have noticed, well, as an optometrist who have practiced for over 20 years and as a pediatric optometrist, one of the things we have noticed is the myth people have towards eye care and towards wearing glasses. If you check the Nigerian force, before we also partner with Federal Road Safety Commission. If you check most of our public drivers, you notice that they really don't wear glasses. While most of them don't see. So it's just that myth. They believe that when you wear glasses, it's like you don't see or you are blind, and the passengers will not want to patronize you or board your vehicle. So is a myth on the stigma on wearing glasses. Parents think, oh, their child should have a perfect vision. And even when they notice that this child is visually impaired, they believe for miracle to help them take care of that need. So it's very concerning. and also the lack of government policy on visual health. In Nigeria, we've noticed that children are not tested while they are about to enter primary school or even kindergarten. They leave testing of the child's eye to secondary school. But this child has been in school for like 8 years with poor vision and impacting on their education and on their academics. So is the lack of policy in place to say every child should be tested before they get into the kindergarten or primary school instead of secondary school, and poor education on the part of parents. We have a large population of illiterate parents, and then poor economy, like poverty, basically.
So when you speak about lack of policy, does that mean that the policy you like to see is such that, broadly speaking, again, is tests almost at every point in time, or what specifically, in addition to what you said, would you want to see as a policy in this country?
Yes, the policy, thank you for the question. The policy should be that a child gets tested before entering kindergarten. In fact, the earliest stage a child's eye should be tested is at birth, to make sure that everything is functioning as at that milestone. And after that, at 1 year, the child should also have their eyes tested. And then before they start school, Nigeria will start at 2, nursery school at 2, but in other climes, kindergarten is at 4 years. At that point, the child should have their eyes thoroughly and comprehensively checked to make sure that there are no visual impairments, refractive errors, squints, lazy eyes. These are things that, if corrected on time, could be beneficial to the child. When you notice them on time and you correct them, they are correctable. But when you have allowed them to fester for long, then sometimes you may not really achieve the best correction. So when I say lack of policy, I mean the age at which the child should have their first eye check should be at minimum 4 years before they enter kindergarten, as is done in other climes.
That's very instructive. I mean, I don't know that I'll be described as an illiterate, but at the same time, I didn't know that, it was just regular policy for children to have their eyes checked even before they start school. And I think that in our time today, when you look at how very early on we're beginning to introduce our children to screens, to television screens, to laptops, to tabs, as the case might be. You see many children these days, they're usually with tabs, and we oftentimes do not take into cognizance the effect that this can have on the eyes of our children. I think that what you're saying eventually, makes a lot of sense. But how do we begin to enforce this? Because you have said that, you have a lot of parents who are not literate. You also have a lack of government policy. But a lot of people are also not aware. How are you able to raise the awareness amongst, the general populace that this is something that we should do regularly for our children to help keep their eye health?
Thank you so much. That's the essence of this World Sight Day. Even though we are not planning to stop the advocacy today, we're trying to take it to the government, take it to schools, take it to everybody that needs to know that we need to start thinking outside what we're doing now and change policies. The emergence of digital world, the children now are taught digitally, is also bringing with it some disadvantages. We're now having an offshoot of myopia. The prevalence of myopia worldwide is on the increase because of digital use. Most of the children now base their academics, base their life on looking at very short distances, looking at the laptop, looking at the phone, looking at the desktop, and these are short distance visions, and it does not allow the muscles to look further away, and this is impacting on the axial length of our eyeballs and is leading to an increase in myopia. They are saying that by the year 2050, the world will be having like almost 2 billion people that will be myopic, both children and adults. And also we're having an upsurge of dry eyes. Before, dry eyes used to be a disease for the elderly, for the older people, 50 years and above. But we're having a lot of children now come down with dry eye disease. And is almost like at an epidemic level, even as myopia is going to become an epidemic very soon. So we're using this platform to advocate, to speak to the public, to tell the government that we have to start now to change the policies so that children start on time to assess eye health before it's too late.
That's really frightening. I mean, just thinking about the effect of introduction of screen time and the frequency of the screen time that a lot of our children are having, that's really something to worry about, that we'll have, an upsurge in myopia, and we're beginning to see an uptrend in number of people who are reporting dry eyes. But let's talk about how health insurance is also something that discourages many people from wanting to even go to the eye doctor on a normal day. These days, you have a lot of, companies, organizations sign up for health insurance. And in some regards, it's not clear how many people are covered. We still know that, we're still not fully covered in our country with regards to health insurance. And there have been talks around universal basic health care, etc. However, for most people who have some form of health insurance, eye care is not one of the things that is included under health insurance. And even if eye care is glasses, etc., they are not usually there. And we know that this kind of care, they don't come cheap. How do we begin to, incorporate eye health as a significant part of health insurance packages? Is that an advocacy that you're also looking into?
Thank you. But that's why we need a lot of advocacy. We need, if government puts policies in place, health insurance will have to follow. We have health insurance policies that put eye care and eye health on the background. We are not on the front burners. They put other things ahead, and then the coverage for eye is very meager. And even those that are insured, that the people that are insured are actually the working class people who on their own could have been able to afford even the basic eye care. The general population, the general masses are not insured. The people that are not in the workforce, they are not insured. And government will have to look into that. They need to carry the policy to the grassroots, starting from the primary care to the secondary care to the tertiary care, where no one is left behind. That's what we're advocating. We're saying, let no one be left behind in this journey of providing eye care to children. Because any child you leave behind, you're either going to make the child blind from something that could have been corrected. You could make the child blind from a cataract surgery that could have happened as a baby, and he would have regained his sight. You're making the child blind from high myopia, that the child could have just had glasses or contact lenses and he would have regained his life. So we are really advocating that the eye health policy should be domesticated, so that it starts from the grassroots to the secondary level, to the tertiary level. And also, we're also using this medium to tell the insurance companies, the HMOs, the NHIS, that they should improve on what they provide for eye care. Is really, really, really not encouraging. And then, they say every 2 years, but that's not the case. A child cannot wait for 2 years. A child that has progressive myopia cannot wait for 2 years to access care. Some of them, their prescription changes 6 months, 1 year, due to continuous elongation of their axial length. So when you say, oh, you access care once in 2 years, that's really, really not good. That's disadvantaging the children.
Okay.
Thank you.
Doctor, I'm looking at one of the studies of the International Agency for the Prevention of Blindness, that is Nigeria specific. And it's saying that approximately 4.2 children suffer from visual impairments, and that 84% of these cases are preventable or treatable conditions. Now, you've spoken to what agencies of government, healthcare providers can do. How about the parents? What's the role for the parents? Markwe just cited one, screen time for children, that needs to be controlled and all of that. What are some of the conditions that of, healthcare, eye care conditions that parents need to be aware of, and what they need to do for their children to prevent visual impairments at whatever level?
Thank you so much. So for the parents, they should prioritize their child eye health. The same way every year they shop for back to school for their children, eye health should be part of back to school. You should make sure that before your child resumes the new class, the child have their eyes tested and every visual impairment corrected. And parents should also be vigilant. You have a child who goes very close to the television to watch TV, and you send them back to the back chair, they go back to the television, to just almost in front of the television. You should be worried. Something is wrong. That's why that child doesn't like to sit at the back, because the child can barely see what is written on the television, on the screen. And then you have a child who, when they want to read, they almost bring the book to their face. You should be worried. Something is wrong. Because if the child could see the book on her desk or his desk, they should have read it on the desk. You have a child who, when they are reading, they use their hand to control the line, to keep the line in place. Something is wrong. The child may be astigmatic. That's why the child is using their hand to keep the line in place, because lines, the letters on the word keeps jumping. So if your child is going very close to the TV, the child is most likely myopic. If your child does not like reading their book, it's not because the child is dull. Have you wondered, why don't you like reading your book? It's because the child cannot see the prints on the book. The prints, they start off reading the prints, but the eyes need a lot of focus, a lot of energy to focus the print on the book due to hyperopia. So after a while, the child loses focus, the child eyes get tired, and the child drops the book and rather do something else. So the child is hyperopic, the child is not dull. By the time you give the child the aid that they need, the correction that they need, the glasses that they need, then the child will start performing well and reading. Then you see a child that the eyes turn in or out. As a mother, you should notice if your child's eye is turning in or out. That's squint. Sometimes those turning in and out will even lead to double vision, depending on the type of squints that they have. You bring the child early. When you bring in the child early, vision therapy can be conducted on that child. If it's something that therapy will do to straighten the muscles, if it's something that surgery will do to straighten the muscles. So the parents, caregivers, guardians have a lot of role to play in this regard, because they are the primary carers of these children. They are the ones that observe their eyes. They are the ones that when they look at their eyes, they see that one pupil is black and the other one is white. So they should be vigilant. They should be in checking their eyes and noticing. They are the ones that notice that the child tilts the head to one side while looking at things, because the child is astigmatic and the child wants to do some basic maneuvers just to put things straight. So parents have a role to play, especially the ones that are educated, while we carry the message down to the ones that don't have access to care and see how we can mitigate the problem.
You know, part of
Thank
the responsibility of parents is also to provide for their children in terms of what they eat and all of that. So it leads me to the question of what kind of things, foods, that parents should avoid giving their children in the interest of loving their eyes, the eyes of the children. What kind of things should children avoid eating? Should parents avoid giving to their children as a part of this whole process?
Okay, thank you so much. You know, these days we're also advocating to go healthy, reduce sodas when children are going to school. Instead of packing up canned drinks, sweetened sodas to them, just give them the natural food, the healthy food, their bananas, the avocado pears, the nuts, the eggs, all the colors of the vegetables, the green, the yellow, the orange vegetables. They are all very healthy for the children. Give them the fish meals. They need their fish in their meals. Just maintain a balanced diet for the children. Anything that is healthy for the body is also healthy for the eyes. We discourage parents from putting some harmful things in the eyes. You have parents, a child's eyes turn red, and then the neighbor tells them that, oh, when my child's eyes were red, I used breast milk. And then they put breast milk. Meanwhile, breast milk is a good medium for bacteria to grow. And if it was a little scratch on the cornea, before you know it, it becomes a big ulcer. And then some people will say, oh, my neighbor used crude oil. Then you have some parents putting crude oil on their baby's eyes because their neighbor used it. And before you know it, the eye is lost, the cornea is gone. So we advocate healthy meals, reduce carbonated drinks for your children, healthy practices, make sure that there are no sharp objects lying around. Your tables don't have sharp edges where the children can fall and hit their eyes on it. Just basic safeties. That's what parents should endeavor to do. And then also reduce screen time. The world now, the new advocacy now is that after school hours, the child should not have more than 2 hours of screen time after normal school hours to mitigate the prevalence of progression in myopia. We're also advocating that every day after school hours, the child should have at least 2 hours of outdoor time. And we tell parents that when we say outdoor time, we're not saying go outside and say carry your laptop, carry your desktop, carry your tablets. No. Outdoor time where you ride bicycles, you play football, as we used to do before. That's also research has shown that it helps to reduce the axial elongation of the axial length that leads to progression in myopia. Thank you.
That's why they say wonders never cease. I can't believe people use crude oil for the face. No wonder, but please, people should not even think about that. I want to thank you for coming on this morning, Dr. Chibuzo Clement Josh, the chairperson of Nigerian Optometrist Association, River State. Thank you and all the best.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So let's go ahead. We'll have some messages, guys, don't we? So,
indeed, it does appear we do. We see this first one from Honorable Ademola Alalade, who says, we have leaders in Nigeria, but we don't have leaders who are interested in the progress of Nigeria. Leaders who are interested in the growth of the country. Then they will be fully committed to ensuring things are working the way it should in the country.
Well, this one from Prof says the true mark of a leader is a willingness to stick with a bold and collective course of action with strategic planning to embark in an unconventional but effective and unique economic strategy with an uncommon developmental roadmap to better the people's lives. And he goes on and on. Let our leaders interact and govern their citizens in communicating their policies and programs during electioneering campaigns. Then we would have been on our way to economic emancipation where power outages, hunger, poverty, insecurity, unemployment, and inflation are reduced or curtailed.
This one is from Festus. It says, the many challenges facing our country today are mainly caused by lack of good leadership in public and private sector. Saying strong leadership is key to fostering innovation, unlocking potential of citizens, and ensuring there are right strategies to drive production and growth. There must be an effective investment in leadership training, both in governance and organizations, regardless of the size, sector, and location. That's the only way, he says, we can achieve sustainable economic prosperity and full potential of every Nigerian and compete successfully in the competitive world. That is from Festus. All right, so there you go. That wraps it up today. We do thank you all for watching. We will see you again next time. I'm Chamberlain, so have yourselves a very lovely day.
Well, I do hope that you've learned a thing or two today. Today is Wednesday. I remember telling my daughter, today is Wednesday, and she goes, yeah, that means no cartoon today. She knows that's not till the weekend. So I hope you've learned